But the taxes, he had no choice. The pensions were going belly up. He's had to raise taxes, something like $1.4 billion just on property, a water and sewer tax from the municipal fund, 2 telephone tax increases for the laborers fund. The next mayor of Chicago will have to raise taxes again to keep them on pace to a 90% funding level. What choices would you have made?
Well, look, I think that the differences are frankly stark. Those taxes that you just laid out, every single one of those is a regressive tax that puts more of the burden on low and middle income families. Plus, you have the fact that the city is not run in a fiscally sound way. And you've reported on it over and over again. Out of control settlements, judgments, and attorney's fees on police cases. But it's not just police cases, it's all sorts of other risks that are not being addressed. We have the worst tax base, the biggest tax burden of one of the metropolitan areas in the country. We have government that is just not being run efficiently.
Now, you have criticized the police academy, not the fact that we need one,
right,
but where it's done and how it was done. What did that episode say about Rahm Emanuel, and why is that the wrong place?
Well, I think, again, it goes back to a us versus them, top-down style of governance, which is unacceptable to most citizens in the city. And the police academy is a perfect example. Yes, there was conversation with the local alderman, but that in putting that edifice to policing in the middle of one of the most economically distressed neighborhoods in our city, where I think the median income is about $24,000 a year, right? And where the relationship between the police and the community at best is fraught. Without engaging the community, without talking to them about what their specific needs are, not just the aldermen, but the actual community, making them partners and having a real seat at the table from the beginning of the discussion. And having that development, if it is to go there, be part of a larger conversation about spurring economic development in that neighborhood. It's a nice press hit, but if we're going to make that kind of investment, which will surely exceed $100 million, we've got to have a real plan that invites the community at the table on the front end as a valued partner. That is a big difference in the way that I will govern as mayor and the way things are happening now. Fundamentally, I will trust people and I will listen to them, and I will bring them into government in a very different way than what has happened.
What is his style? How would you describe it?
Well, I think a lot of people would describe it as us versus them, as downtown versus the neighborhoods, as listening to some and not listening to others, as investing in some places and not others.
Well, but he's tried in a second term to get out in the neighborhoods, to create the Share the Wealth Fund, to do the various things.
I don't know that people perceive that. That's certainly not what I've observed, and it's certainly not what I'm hearing from people in neighborhoods all over the city. I mean, another perfect example of this is the Grassroots Alliance for Police Accountability. This was a group of community organizations that started their work 2+ years ago with the blessing of the mayor, being in constant contact with his staff, and then they come up with a proposal that he doesn't like. Rather than engaging with them respectfully about it, what happens? In the dark of night, he crafts 2 alternative ordinances and drops it, and never had the decency to tell them about it up front. I would never do something like that. That is the anger that generated, the level of disrespect that those people felt, like their work meant nothing to him. Now they feel it has value and they're going to keep fighting on, but making all sorts of unnecessary enemies everywhere, how is that leadership?
Do you think Mayor Emanuel sat on the tape, the Laquan McDonald shooting video, to get past the election? And is that an issue in this campaign?
I don't know if he did or he didn't, but I know that there's a widespread public belief that he absolutely did do that. And that public belief is really palpable, and I think it's going to be a factor in this election. Look, what I know is that young man's life can't go in vain. We have to galvanize the heightened public awareness and, frankly, public outcry that was the tipping point. Release of that video and the process by which it was released was the tipping point to take advantage of the opportunity to dig down deep, make the hard choices that need to be made, and do the systemic change work that needs to happen in the police department.
The police contract, you've said, codifies the code of silence. you as mayor would have to lead a police department that would be very suspicious of you. How do you do that? How do you demand the changes in the police contract to make discipline easier, and yet still lead the department and get those officers to be proactive instead of reactive?
Well, I don't accept your premise. I worked in the police department. I care very deeply about the success of the police department. I have officers who are on a job that are my friends, and ones that are retired that are still very much connected and plugged in to the police department. And I think that those who know me understand that what I'm advocating for is a police department that is best in class, a police department that is second to none, a police department that respects and values its most important assets, which are the officers, and a police department that has real training and real accountability, so it has legitimacy with people in the neighborhood.